end stream, setting communication. Okay, track lines and high setting. Okay, recognition line interference, putting position location levels. This usually happens sometimes because the thing is you have to understand the recognition line interference location when it comes into panels, setting communication to its position line directions. All right, channel streamlines into operation. So getting in that position, guys, you have to really recognize line settings. Now you got the alpha line interference, setting position locations into levels of its dimensional setting. Now the dimensional line center is dimensional equals dimension. Now that splits to position locations of two panels offer string locations. Okay. So recognizing line interference of 5, setting position locations into 5, setting position locations into 5, into line centers, and plus line center locations 1 plus 1 equals location of 3. 3 sets lines of 3 into position of 5 and set locations. So you got 5 line channels, and you block its setting line rotation in position locations into lower division locations of panels. Now that sets a high line interference. Now it puts 3 inline rotations to high lines into its own pi of correlation setting and rotation spin. Setting position locations of panels of communication settings, done by equation. Now recognizing communication settings, really understand the calculations to your chakra settings, which is no longer in set locations. The energy cells, the pocket cells, the energy line interference, the solar generation streamlines, the allocate line rotation interference line direct location is not in channel opposite stream. You guys are now in position location of quantum setting. Quantum setting locations to your computer adaptation line and rotations, computer chips locations. 0 line interference into 22 set locations. Circuits into 4 line channels streamlines. So that sets line interference. So you got the line position locations comes in alpha, comes into all position location delta, and so line position locations into omega. That's where it is in set line. Okay. So recognizing what you're doing is to really understand the factors in position of pi in set locations to its set line communication of its communication that sets line position locations into teleportation to telewaving into teleportation set lines into telecommunications into line interference, into collaboration set lines, into 3 channels and set locations, the box lines in position of north and east and west and south locations. Blocking interference is really to stand the recognition locations into block channels. Now you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 line centers and graph line centers into 12 line rotations into DNA. DNA sets line locations into pixelation string lines and set locations into your T reception line and correlation setting into 3 Raven channels at alpha, delta, and omega site locations. On 1 gamma sigma, the site locations, done by equation. Okay? So, this is interesting when you look at these things to know exactly what you're doing through your computer line rotations. You guys are now officially into your avatars. Congrats on that. So the avatar is in a higher flux. Okay, it's in a higher flux now. So you have to really recognize what is going on in position of provision. Provision line centers and perception locations equal line conditions of AI. And a line center line positions over 0. Line position location at 22 sets line position locations into 2 line channels, 2 line streams, crossing signals, and a 2 rotation in set locations. Now, recognizing the line setting is to understand the adaptation of its box locations into 3 measures in set locations. All right, 3 box locations of channels. Now you got 3 line settings. You got 3 line position here, setting position of high lines, in position of alpha, and line conditions of 1. Okay, so that's 3. Okay, in set lines in position of alpha into equal locations of 1. I want you guys to really understand how to get into your own position locations into set lines of 0 operation of your own pi correlation, done by equation. Now, recognizing line condition is to understand how to use this now, because the thing is you are in computer chips into your avatar line setting into 22 positions. Now that's division over pi, sectors over pi, correlations over pi, quantums over pi, vectors over pi. Position line direct locations, center line setting high position locations to its pi setting, sets position, time maintenance, some high line interference in or direct location alpha. Alpha sets line positions into the line position of 3 lines into its triangulation set. Okay, setting correlation system is its box location into level setting. Now it gets more complicated because what you're doing is you're creating a flywheel in set location to 4 pieces of a puzzle in its correlation setting. Now 1-2 line interference, so you got 1 line track, you got 2 positions, you got 3 line settings, and you got position of 4 line positions of pi in sector location of coloration. Coloration downshifts this line position location to all levels of high setting. Done by equation. See the intelligence? All right, so setting communication is really important now because the thing is, your flux capacitor is in a higher level of correlation set now. Okay, so you got the flux capacitor line position locations. You start with the underlying line centers of y equals flux. Now the flux line centers its circuit location into this position locations. This is what you're working with now. Okay, that's what you're working with. So you channel line interference, you're changing box locations to higher levels. Computer chips in 3 line settings and rotations. Setting line position locations at all levels. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the 4 lines are set up, okay, in set locations. All right, all set up. Now, when it's set at line interference and line position locations, we cross streams and set lines. Okay, this is where it comes into shield plates and high center line rotations into your computer chip rotation settings. So once you get into that line interference, you set line interference, electrical line position of box. Box sets line position location to higher levels of travels. Okay, getting into that position locations puts you in positions to all levels of downshift of travel location. All right. It's interesting to look at these line settings. It's really powerful stuff when you see these things, especially when you're in your computer chip locations, right? Your avatar setting. Okay, so getting into that fluctuation line setting and new 0 line rotations is in 2 bracket streams. So you got 2 zeros and 2 bracket line conditions, so that's 1, 1 and 2 channels operation, right? Now that 1 line center line interference comes into 1, 1 channel, which is into 4 channel streamlines. So you take the 4 in position here, 4 line settings, 4 line settings, 4 line settings. So you got 4 positions in 1, 4 positions in 2, 4 positions in 3, and 4 positions in 5 set locations. All right. Now into that 5 line setting high interference position locations, 5 sets line conditions, 5 over here, 5 over here, sets and locations. All right. Channel streamline interference. So timeline sequence, timeline interference of 2 panels of correlation system, bracket and general streamlines. That's time locks and set locations all at once. Setting higher position of travel and security measures into your set locations of your 12 DNA track lines in your avatar setting. Done by equation. Okay? So it's very powerful what I'm doing right now. Really stand in the line set location of 0 and set locations into 0 and set locations into 1, 1. Now the 1, 1 comes into 1, 1. That's a portal communications into 4 channels in operation. All right? Sending high interference into a hangar and set locations. So remember, you have to understand how to use the solar generators and streamlines in your solar plex locations, all right? Done by equation. Okay, so that is set up, position line direct locations. Quantum channels, cotillion line of 1 line of 0 line 1. So you got cotillion line into kaleidoscope location, into set locations into high setting, into docile, into 0, 1, a location setting, into 0, 0, into 2 line setting rotations, into set location of 0, 0, 0, 0, into 4 line setting, in bracket location of 4, 4 line setting, in 4 line position locations, into 4 channel streamlines, in hangar position all levels of travel, into 4 sets in rotation setting, into graph line streams, into DNA track, into 12 equal line conditions to its pixel stream locations and high center locations. Done by equation. That's it. It's all done. All done. So it's really interesting when you look at this. You know exactly how you guys are now set. The whole idea here is to get you guys into your future adaptation line setting, into your avatar location setting interference, getting in position of its direct location. Sorry. So the channel line interference is positions to the schematics, so 0 line rotations. Boxing line interference, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now there's 6 weather patterns into 3 cross, 4 cross streamline settings into a crop circle. Now each crop circle has a position of a higher light setting. It rotates its system in position location of directions. Okay. Now you have to really recognize each frame because each frame is connected to each parallel. It's parallel to position location to its box system to its location setting. Really understand how to set up crop circle to location to ground setting interference. Now, once you get in that line of interference, you get position location of a UFO. The UFO sets line position location, division location, center its communication, and grounds its center lines as scan sets. Scan sets line interference into all of the echo line center rotations into 3 position of channel. 3 channel line rotation interference. Each block comes up in center line interference into 0 line rotations, into higher communications, into panels and rotation setting, into travel communication setting interference, in direct locations, into your connections to your pyramid in set location. Okay. So why do we have crop circles on the ground setting? To create pyramids. Multi-pass. Hoo-ah! Now you understand the schematic line rotation interference and the program set lines and how it formulates its operation to its high setting. It's all about the hieroglyphic locations of channel streamlines. So when you're setting up crop circles, you're setting up new pyramids of high setting and rotation system location to its position location of its setting interference. It sets its position location of its track locations, but it's very powerful when you set location settings. All right, so let's say this one more time. So it's location. All right. Tomorrow we get into hieroglyphic line setting, aerodynamics and high streams. So to set up the 4. So we got 4 line settings and eagle eye conditions of 5. 5 position locations into position of velocity. Velocity is volume. Okay, and the volume comes into acceleration to alpha. Setting position of all levels of mega. Mega sets line position of higher level travel communication setting. Okay. So once you get in that, you get a rotation spin. That spins its position of its pyramid. And the 4 line channel comes into a solar stream. Solar streamline position location track lines into 3 set locations. Okay. Now this tethers its electrical line and the line rotation interference into flux capacitors set location settings in position of directions, right? This opens all line interference because it looks like an airplane in set locations, right? Travel set lines in all lines there. Tail spin position locations, all low setting. In rotations, the flight navigation line setting, high interference in position locations into its wings have correlation setting. High position of direct locations comes into 2 panels upper streamline to higher levels of a pixel streamline in high line rotations into 4 channels 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 DNA, film project location of sun, film project location of moon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Rotation cycles and high center interference are picked off to streamline line rotation position locations into all levels of a circle around setting rotation position of spin cycles. Now the centerline interference picks off to streamline one box location channels its position locations into the opposite system location, crisscrosses this line communication streamlines in rotation like this in the correlation setting. Okay, so you have to really recognize these things, Belinda. How to set this up is really understand how to set things up in position of its location of its direction. All right. Channel streamlines now high line rotation interference comes position locations to its diamond core. Diamond core sets line location at all levels. So when you're setting up a schematic line interference, you're crisscrossing line center locations at all levels. You set the energy wash and correlation system into direct location settings. Okay. Now, getting into that position line high setting, you have to really recognize the communication system to its position line direct locations. All right. Setting a high line interference is really recognize the communication system, all levels. Now this is the correlation system of what Belinda connected to her future self. I'm drawing the exact same thing, but I'm setting frame lines and high line rotations and know exactly what she's doing through done by equation. Okay, that's exactly what Belinda set up. Okay. You have to recognize these things and how crop circles are made. Okay, why it sets on ground line rotation interference, setting position location directions. Okay. Okay, done by equation. Now you understand why we have crop circles on the ground location settings, right? This gives you a little bit more understanding what you need to do. So you got a pixel streamline setting. Now you're in your computer line rotations into 1 continuing sets and 1 0. Line position of 1 graph line, guys. So you're finally coming into your atom line setting, coming into higher levels of your atom rotations. The outer rotation is a spin cycle, sets line conditions into one measure. That one measure sets its line position of one dot center and locations to the opposite system locations. All right. This channels its two into the opposite direct locations to another line interference into three positions, into three positions, into three positions. That's triangulation set and high line rotation. Okay, knowing exactly what you're doing through the avatar settings, right? This is from you in the future set locations. How to set these things up is really recognizing what you're doing through three levels, three locations, and three set line divisions into your schematic line interference in rotation setting. Now you get a rotation spin cycle line interference into two track locations. So now it's two line interference in position of all center communications into two line channels at three line positions of pi and square line of two root set locations. Okay, done by equation. So this is what you guys are coming into now. You're coming more into positions to really understand the schematics to each set line. So you have 0 to 22 sets. Now really recognize what you're doing through your pi is a rotation spin. Setting line position locations gives you all levels of division locations, sectors and vectors and quadrant settings, okay? Okay, so now you're in your computer chip settings now, into 22 line settings in your avatar line rotations. So setting position of schematics is really understanding what you're doing through line setting. So it's all rotation set. So anything through 0 is communication to its omega. Okay, the recognition line interference in position location of delta, setting line position of alpha, setting line interference into beta, and setting line communications in position location of theta, setting interference to gamma, and set line communications into radiation, and set communication settings. All right, so all you got to do is understand how to use the zero line position of color into rotation, and position location to its own pi at high settings to its direct locations. All right. So it's really interesting too, because the thing is, your test and review and your evaluation is already set up to its frequency set locations, guys. So if you get a box channel, one box line setting in set locations to this setting locations, right? Really get into the schematics of what you're doing through travel settings, all right? So setting line interference is travel locations. Now it's going into one continuum set in travel locations extremely fast, but it's in the opposite cycle, which means its locations into past in set locations in line interference in position of its pi in its reference and positions back into its center line into its pi in line conditions overline setting in set locations to overdrive set line connections to high position location of travel. Okay, it gets complicated. So it's recognizing the communication in the alpha line setting. Let's say you get an alpha line position of 1. Now how does alpha become 1? Well, one line center line position locations. To get alpha line interference, you need 1, 1 equals connections of 1, 1. That's position locations into its pi sector. So once you get an outline interference, you want to change higher variance line position of direct location at delta. You have to change the 1, 1 into 1, 1. That's a port of communication into 4 channels. 4 equals location of delta. Okay? So I want you guys to really understand how to set signals and really understand the alpha, delta, theta, beta, and omega communication as gamma signals. Setting line position location as sigma is really understand the morphous set lines of communication. Morphosing set lines and mutation valves sets a correlation panel in position locations to your transmutation. Right? The translation to its line communication system is usually understanding more levels of view through your mind, adaptation cycles, and high interference that picks off string lines into your telepathy or telekinesis location settings. So getting into that position, get you all levels. All right. So now you understand how to turn the alpha equal line conditions into 1 equal locations into box. So how do I change the alpha line setting into 1 locations? Now, you have set lines of 1 grounds at center line interference in 3 set locations. All right, 3 equal line conditions underscore into plus. Okay, in set line interference. So it's really interesting too, because you have to understand how everything works. 1 plus 1 equals 3, but you have to understand if 1 plus 1 equals 3 in line center locations, you can go into negative in line position of all levels plus setting communication of 2, line positions of 1 sets all positions alpha and set lines back into 1 line conditions, equal line communications. So getting in line interference, 3 equals 1 in set locations into 4 points in set location to high setting into positions over pi in 4 set locations. So that's how you go in the alpha wave line center. Alpha turns into 1 and 1 turns into a box. You guys have to learn how to use this the correlation system. It's all position line centers of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. So what you have to do is just break these things down in its correlation system in all position of frame line setting and graph locations. Break it down, break it down, break it down. All right? So breaking these things down is recognizing your thought settings. This opens all levels of traps locations to your set locations. Setting a trap, okay, traps are good, all right? Traps are good locations. So you got a trapping, equal line conditions of a center, standing on position at all levels of the triangle set location, right? Now the trap line is a teleportation line setting in position of levels. Try to use the silver line, everything is positive line interference. So trap is not trap. Trap is line position location of positive. The only way to understand that is change the mind adaptation of its travel location into its communication of its pyramid setting in position locations to your inhibitor in your line interference in position of 6 in line 7 in line position 8 in position location 9 and 12 in the center line interference. 12 times 12 is line position of 24. Back in correlation system, it's no longer a correlation setting in position of a trap line setting. It's coming into remembering line setting into its atom line rotation to its perception locations in set locations. All positive and high center line interference in travel line positions to your avatar set locations. Done by equation. Okay? How does he do that? So, getting understanding how to change one to another and back to another, back to its formation, back to its frequency. You guys have to understand going forward is also going back because now you're in your computer chips and your computer chips are now a circuitry line setting that's in the simulation that's in correlation system to 1 quintillion of 1 0 line 1. Setting line interference location acceleration line condition picks off the string line that's set in your division locations into 24 ground center. This is a 24 ground center that rotates its spin cycle that sets all positions locations to your avatar line setting to its position of your 12 DNA track locations into digital layering, line position locations in its operation system. So you got 0 line rotations, 0 equals 1 in a clock line connections. All right. Clock line setting, line interference, and position locations into flux capacitor into 3-piece line settings into a line setting, 3-line setting, 3-line setting, and 3-line setting. Setting position of bracket, line position locations. Setting communication of 1 plus 1 equals 3 in set locations. Okay? Done by equation. Now, once you understand the pi like this, you understand how to coordinate the set location and motion line interference. It comes out with this location and track settings. Let's say you get any yellow. Now, what's yellow set location? What is yellow? What is yellow? Right? What is yellow? Yellow equals connection to what? Solar plex. Now, yellow equals solar plex. Now, the solar plex line setting crosses signals, and the crossing signal is an alpha line setting. Now, the alpha line setting sets specific location at delta and set locations into beta. So you have to understand how to set lines at alpha. So alpha communication. So it's electrical line setting. So 1 line interference, there's an alpha line rotations. There is a delta communication. There's the 3 sets. Okay, alpha, delta, and beta. Right? Recognizing frame setting line interference locations all over the color. So each one is a representation across crisscross line interference, right over left, left over right. We've already been through that through I receptor line and rotation, specification, track settings. Don't get confused at rotation interference. Understand the alpha line settings, equal location of delta, delta line position of mega, mega line interference. So anything higher is what? Faster, right? So you start here, you go to here, and then you go here, and then you go to here, and then you go to here. Okay, see what I'm doing with the wave settings? Each wave setting is different, right? So setting correlation system, you always start off with the alpha setting. Alpha sign locations. Now this is alpha setting, equal line conditions of delta, delta changing into position locations, into high levels of data, data line interference of all position locations. This comes into track interference, track line conditions all levels. This comes into beta, Beta line position all levels, high center interference. This comes into gamma. Gamma line interference, line position location to omega, and set locations to high center interference, and position locations over pi set location. Okay? Gets complicated, but it's a lot more fun. So that's what you guys are getting into. You're getting your wave central line communication, digital layer and set lines, high center location, so your place location, line interference of 0 line, position of 22, location, your avatar settings. So it's really understand how to use your motion line interference and position location of levels, putting your position location track interference. That's why I want you guys to get your muscle memories. Getting into your muscle memory is number one. One set location is all of a setting. 1 equals 1 set. Okay, 1 equals 1 set. What does that mean? Well, it's a set to a pi. There you go, done. So that pi equals line position location to its abundance through another pi locations. Triangulation lines, there's a 2-panel correlation settings. There's another pi. So it's frame by frame by frame by frame by frame, all through sets, through box location in set settings. Okay, it's going to get more complicated now because you guys are in your avatar, and your avatar has to recognize these things in direct locations to really understand your positions of what you're doing through 1 plus 1 or 1 equals 1 through set locations. All right, through pi correlations at 2 panels. All right, right over left, left over right. Okay, so there's so many ways to set lines of communication. But because you're in your avatars and you're in your conditions, your quantum settings into computer chip settings, this is a lot more complicated, but a lot more fun. Setting line interference is really understanding emotional line interference because your emotional system changes nanoseconds and per second line interference of 60 seconds per minute. The channel interference changes position location in direct line settings. In 1 second, your position of emotion can change so many yellows in 1 second location setting. Okay? That's a lot of yellow in set location into your 12 DNA track location. Now, setting position of direct locations is really understand the channels of streamlines. Okay. Now you got the streamline centering and 1 graph line rotations into 2 block surface. Okay. So we got 3 set locations into waving channels of alpha line setting in set locations done by equation. Okay. That's 3 sets of alpha and 2 line position of box line. So really, really pay attention to these things because it's about you understanding you through your emotional set locations. All right. Now we have a lot to do in set locations coming into your pies of position to your flux capacitors in 3 channels into 6 in set location of 9 in set lines and high center interference of 6 in set locations into 6 in line setting in position location of 7 line interference into 8 9 line rotations into 12 line centers, 12 times 12, 12 times 12 is 30 line 6 in set locations into bracket locations into alt levels into 46 times 2 line setting into 48 line position of 72 in your computer set rotations into your avatar of your computer chips and rotation setting. Okay? So there's a lot of things that you have to recognize what you're doing through your alpha channels. You really have to recognize these things because you're a higher level now through avatar setting. If you get a communication you in position locations, so this is how you communicate back with each other, right? Back and forth, right? So this is about understanding how to measure your correlation system to its box locations. That channels its rotation into its circle locations. You got 1 here and 1 here position locations. 2 platforms, right? Now, this is you in position. This is your position, right? You communicate with somebody else, right? So the rotation spin cycle has an interference line correct location system, puts specific location at all levels. You scan settings and set locations, right away, set location, scan settings and right away, position locations, all levels of channel line interference and direct locations, right? So getting in a triangulation line setting has set location. Let's say you're going to inhibitor line rotation interference into 6 and the 7 location of 8. That's set location of travels. Now let's say you want to put position of 9. So 9 sets line position location to an energy wash in set location. So you put an energy wash on this person in position location of attractions because you're not sure of that person. So the 9 line centers crisscross its locations into all levels of sonar line rotation. Okay. So what that does is it sets up a freeing setting. Now that freeing setting sets up high line rotation interference in direct locations. So you got 9 line setting into all position of 8 line centers, infinity cycle. Setting correlation system to your position locations to all levels. Open up your magnetic highway information system, scanning set lines and high line and rotations into 3 communication set lines and rotation. Done by equation, right? So now you have to understand how to use your numbers in your alpha wave set locations. Okay? All right, so really recognize what you're doing with your mind now, because the thing is, you're in your avatars, you're in your computer chip line interference and operation location of levels, but the levels is line interference of ground levels, location of operation. All right? You have to really understand your level settings into 0 gravity. That's 2 track location into 0, 0, 0, 0. Bracket location and position of track locations. There's your Merkaba. Recognizing your Merkaba knows how to travel a zing zang zoom, zip zap zoom, sending line and rotation interference. UFO comes in, line of rotations, scans position, travels here, travels here, travels here, travels here, travels here, scans position location and track setting. Okay? You have to learn how to set up laser line streams now, because the thing is, they set up the shapes, you set up the stream. But you have to learn how to use it through your avatar anomaly setting, because you're in anomalies. Your anomalies is changing number lines, frequency locations into line set locations of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. You start with that locations, right? So each one changes nano of a second. Nanosecond line center locations into one stream. Okay, one streamline setting sets specifications of level system to one graph of locations. Okay? Now, coming into number line center, it goes faster. Okay, so the thing is, you have to understand the letters, because letters is in a 2-line angle. 1 and position of 2. There's 2 angles, right? So that crosses this location of 3, sets line position locations in line interference, line position of negative, and position of positive. Sets line position location to its pi setting in 3 locations back and track interference into your positions of your pi setting, which is your pyramid. So recognizing communication line setting is really understand the levels of correlation system to your letters. It comes into alpha. Okay, so you can have alpha equal location of delta, delta into beta, or beta and omega. It all depends on your coloration position. Color changes this line communication of your suns, which is light settings. Now the moon sets lines in the emotional line interference. Each one has a pixelation string line. So it's a lights on, lights off, lights on, lights off, very fast. Now it all depends on what you're doing with your thought line interference. The center line interference. Anything to nano is half pi. Okay? Setting correlation systems at 3/4, 2/4, 1/2, line 1 division. Rotation line interference. Then you come into all line centers of sectors, locations, into symbols. Symbols, line interference, line position of shapes. Shapes over symbols doesn't matter. What matters, do you understand what you're doing with your emotional line interference? Changing line position locations into alpha, setting line position location into delta, setting position of the beta into levels of gamma, setting line interference into theta, setting communication system into radiation line settings, into all mitigation center interference, indirect locations, and specifications to its radiation cycle, and high generous streamlines and big size stream locations. Done by equation. All right. So there's a lot to understand, right? Each one has a different channel stream. If you don't recognize your computer chip line settings, you're going to have a lot of problems with speed line setting. Now, this is speed diameter line rotations. Speed diameter is a clock line setting. It's an interference to position of channel. The channel operates as string locations. So let's say you get one line setting, equal locations of alpha. Alpha line position location of the box. Box position location equals color. Okay, so you got a color line setting. Let's go into pi locations. All right, there's a pi. All right, so you got the coloration here, and box location is center here. Equal line conditions to position of north and position of south into center location, position location into its Merkaba setting rotation. Set a correlation system into alpha line setting. So that's the wave and set locations to its set location. Setting line in position of 1. 1 centers its travel location into 12 DNA in rotation to its spin cycle as security measures and program locations of travel settings. Done by equation. All right. Gets more complicated, doesn't it? So you really have to recognize the one lines, the alpha lines, the box lines, and the coloration. There's your pi right there in set location, high setting. Okay? Gets complicated, right? So you just have to really understand that your coloration, your lights, your emotional setting is changing nanoseconds of a split-second line interference of half pi positions into a half pipe. Now, if you get in a half pipe of 6 line settings, as 6 line positions, equal line positions over pi, okay, you have to recognize the communication into 1, into alpha, into line conditions of box, in set location to its color line setting, in position location to its own set locations, into all levels of a measure line interference and center locations of pi. Okay? Recognizing these line settings, really understand position location of traction. Okay? So, closing signals, closing line interference over pi, position of team. You guys are back in set location settings. All right, so we have Q&A. I'll give you guys 5-10 minutes, and I'll see you on Zoom. Adios.